How you doing? Here.
Commissioner Robertson,
Here.
Commissioner Speaka. Here. Commissioner Terry.
Here.
We have a standing motion for the approval of the minutes.
I did receive some corrections.
Any other corrections at this time? Those then stand as corrected. There are no courtesies tonight, and there are no proclamations, so I think we should start with our board and commissioner reports. Commissioner Speaka?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Commissioner Rubes?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Commissioner Hewitt?
Well, I attended the airport board meeting by phone and hated every blooming minute of it, and I had nothing because I didn't go up and get the minutes from, Brian. Unless you have something you can say. No. Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Roberts?
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Terry?
I did not attend the Central Montana Foundation meeting that was in June, but they have one coming up in July. They were actually deciding whether or not to have it. So sometimes they don't meet in July. So I'll report when I have more.
Thank you. The library board, for my board report, has been moved to Tuesday, July 30th. And that will be at the library. All right, city manager report.
Yes, and I
City
don't
manager Holly Phelps.
know which copy you had. I have the old one, so. At the cemetery, we're in the process of mowing the entire thing. We have had other, various employees, seasonal employees up there assisting the new caretaker getting him caught up. We are also working on having one of the tractors repaired and getting some irrigation repaired as well. Summer's busy, and so he has been doing several burials and also pouring headstones and things like that too. So. There's lots of events planned for this time of year. This weekend is no exception. There'll be a pool tournament in the downtown, and then we jump right to the fair season. The fair parade will be held on Thursday, the 25th at 11. And kind of cap off a week of festivities. We currently have a couple positions available. We are currently accepting applications for 2 street workers and the public works director. Information can be found on our website or at job service, but those are the only openings we currently have. Last week, we welcomed a couple new employees. At the city office, we welcomed a new old face, our office clerk, and hired at least have a conditional offer for a dispatcher. Reminder, our budget work session is Monday, July 29th at 5:30. At that time, we plan on going over the entire preliminary budget. So, kind of keep that in the back of your mind. We do have an opening on our TID board. The application is available on our website, and you can see the directions. You just go to the I Want To tab and can find the application there. Or if you know somebody, have them stop by Snowy Mountain Development and find out more information on that position. And then, of course, the pool has been very busy this time of year, but the Civic Center is also ramping up their last summer kind of program, which is the Little Eagles flag football program, and then they will launch into their fall program. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, so this is now our public comment of non-agenda items. I'm gonna draw your attention to the agendas that you have on your table. On the back, there is a citizen's participation. Thank you for reviewing that. I'm gonna just read the first paragraph so that we all know.
Let's see.
where we are with that? Yeah.
That is 2024?
No.
I didn't think so.
We'll get the city manager report clarified here at the end. Yeah. So for citizens' participation during our public comment, the Lewistown City Commission welcomes you to its public meeting. The commission appreciates your participation and values your input in our decision-making process. Your input and suggestions are important to the commission as we discuss important issues affecting all of us in Lewistown. We ask that you silence your cell phone before the meeting begins, or now, and please refrain from using that cell phone during this meeting. Thank you. The City Commission also thanks the public members for respectfully and courteously providing constructive and valuable information for these meetings. The public is invited to speak on any issue under discussion by the Commission, and I would like to be able to recognize you. As those comments come in, please stand, share your name and your address for the record. Thank you. The public comment is now open. Thank you.
John Cook, PLCH, the last name, 114 Turquoise, Ward 3, ma'am.
Thank you.
I notice you have microphones up there. Do they work?
Can you hear me?
There
Do I need
we
to
go.
speak directly into it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Does the
Thank you.
manager and the clerk have microphones?
No.
Okay. Speak loud then, yeah.
We're
Thank you.
good. Thank you. Yes.
Darrell Lemon, 194 Castle Ridge. The building that sits in the corner of our property, we're not sure what the history is going to be with that, but we would be interested in the property that it sits on, if it's demolished, or the building itself. I just wanted our name in a hat if something happens to that. Seeing as how it sits in our backyard, we would like a chance at that.
And that's currently identified as city property?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I know they're building a new facility, so I'm not sure what's gonna happen with that little, lift station or whatever it is there.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all.
Is that noted? Yep.
Mr. Patrick, I just wanted to, if anybody has any answers as to why the nursing home at the hospital is closing in next month?
We don't know that
No,
information.
don't know that.
Don't have the answer to that.
No.
They're putting in a cancer center.
Thanks for standing.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
No, I always felt is the reason they were shutting it down is because they're doing that cancer center. My wife works at the hospital, and they said that they were laying off people because of that reason. But that was just what I was told.
All right. One last call. Thank you, guys. Move on to the agenda items, the consent agenda. Have all the commissioners been able to look at the claims? These are the claims that have been paid. Can't move this, can I?
Yeah.
These are the claims that have been paid from June 26th through June 30th, for a total of $1,058,394.
Danny, this is Kellyanne. I have a quick question on the claims. I'm sorry. Am I coming in late?
Very clearly, you're good to go.
Okay, on page 3 of 15, the Department of Revenue 55428 for the Lewistown Water Project. What is that for?
So we pay, gross receipts tax, which is 1% of the payment cost, and that goes to the Department of Revenue. It's kind of prepayment of their income tax. and the contractor then has it held in an account for them at the Department of Revenue that they can get at a later date or use it to pay their taxes. But it's a statutory requirement.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, on page 11, that 900,000 for Prospect Construction, was that our chlorination setup?
That's for the water improvement, yep.
What number was that from?
I'm sorry. Yeah, that was 55,484,
Thank you.
55,485.
I would entertain a motion. You're good with the claims.
I move that we accept claims.
Second.
Sorry, that's okay, that's why I'm standing back here. This is the first time with these guys, be patient with us, please.
They're not magic wands, you
No.
still gotta get up close.
Will you keep track of my first and second one? Okay. We did have a first from Commissioner Hewitt and a second from Commissioner Sika. No, Commissioner Roots. Thank you.
I'll second that.
All right, now we call the vote. Can we do I?
Yep.
Jim, that? Okay. Yep. I say we, if you are in favor of the claims, please raise your right hand. Not.
I'm raising my right hand. Yeah, my left.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. I need to remember you are online with us. We will be doing roll call votes from now on. Thanks. All right, thanks for sticking with me, guys. This is my first time. All right, the regular agenda. Agenda item number 1, discussion and action on approving the request by Rentivator LLC to amend zoning of property located on Rosewood Street near Fountain Terrace Drive, South High Street, and East Water Street from residential manufactured home to residential multiple family. City Manager Holly Phelps.
Yes, so provided in your packet is the information that was presented last time, which is some schematics provided by the developer, as well as the staff report that was done by the planning office. This time I did add the draft minutes from the zoning commission, which is the city county planning board that had heard a public, or had a public hearing and made a recommendation to the board. And then I also sent out this morning the city codes as it pertains to zoning amendment, which is what is before us tonight. Again, those property owners are noticed of this process, have 2 opportunities to participate with public comment, and we heard from several folks last time. But there is a 12-point test that is, or 12 criteria that are evaluated as part of the process, and you'll see that in the staff report as well. But those look at accordance to the comprehensive plan, contributions to reducing congestion, security from fire or other dangers, promoting health and general welfare, providing adequate light and air, preventing overcrowding of land, avoiding undue concentration of population, making sure that there's adequate infrastructure such as transportation, water, sewage, schools, parks, and other public facilities, providing consistent character with the district, providing that there is particular suitability of the property, conserving the value of the buildings, and encouraging the most appropriate land use. And so that's the criteria that was evaluated and provided in your staff report. We can briefly touch on the zoning commission, and Commissioner Hewitt is our representative on the city county planning board. And so they also held a public hearing and received comments from adjacent property owners as to potential impacts. And many of those folks were also here as well and provided us some written comment that is included in your packet. But the city county planning board did recommend this to you guys, and it was recommended unanimously. Commissioner Hewitt, do you have anything to add there?
No, other than the fact that I voted last meeting and the little computer woman said punch 6* and we will unmute you, and it did not unmute me, and I did not pay attention to that. And so consequently, I did not get to vote last time.
You're gonna have to move your
microphone
to you.
Yeah, just move the whole thing toward you.
Take it
There you go.
There you go, thank you.
Anyway, and I didn't get to vote last meeting because I was not here, and like I say, the little computer woman, yeah. If I could have reached through and slapped her, I would have.
This is Kellyanne. I think it should be noted too that the reason this is on the agenda again is because a decision was not made either way. If that's correct to say that just for process purposes, is that right, Holly?
That is correct. We didn't have the adequate number of affirmative votes.
Or really against, right?
Correct.
So we just didn't have enough votes to go one way or the other. So I just wanted to say that's why it's on the agenda again. It's not like we keep bringing this on until it passes or doesn't pass or whatever, so.
At the last meeting, there was some things that the commissioners asked to provide as well. So I handed out a map of the area. On this map, it provides water and sewer information. Again, you can see that there's a water line that goes right up Water Street. That is more than likely where this development would tap off of and tie into. And then the sewer line would have to be extended up closer to the property. The nearest sewer line is at High Street. And so that is why we briefly discussed the last time that there would be some improvements to that section of Water Street that would be required also through our city codes, and as lots are developed, we do require additional infrastructure such as sidewalks, curb and gutter, those sort of things be located adjacent to those properties. So that would be the expectation as we get into the permitting process, that those conditions would have to be met.
Thank you. Looking at your map, there are a few different colors. Can you tell me what the color codes mean?
So sewer is green,
Thank you.
and blue and red are different sizes of water lines. So the red is a 10-inch, the blue is a 6.
So we're in Olivet Street, when I went up there the other day, I went up St. Joseph Drive by the dash in,
Mm-hmm.
and I never did see Olivet Street.
So basically, you know that stop sign by Fountain Terrace, when you make that corner on Fountain Terrace Drive, so you snake your way up there, and you turn left or go into Fountain Terrace. When you turn, you go on to Oulette. So it's down below, it's actually the access for the old Taco Time, which is now Lewistown Coffee, goes along Garfield. And so it would continue, I mean, it currently is not developed, but there is a street right away that runs this whole block along, basically from Pine Street to Water Street, that we're discussing a small portion of tonight.
Well, there is no Olive Street.
It's not developed, but there is that one block that is utilized.
Oh, sweet.
And it's to take to the other apartment complex in that.
It connects
Area.
Water Street to Fountain Terrace.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Holly, can you talk about the, based on city code and the requirements for development of, curb and gutter, street or sewer, water, curb and gutter, what would typically be required of this on these streets?
So I'm gonna take a stab at what you're trying to get at, so if I'm going the wrong tangent, please stop me. But basically, the developer would have to, pay the cost to get to the nearest city services and extend that, to their property. And so, that would be both water and sewer, and as we discussed, it's in the street, and so, that street would have to be restored, and this time we would want pavement, and we wouldn't put it back to millings or anything like that.
So sewer would need to be connected, I'm guessing, on High.
The nearest one is
Corner-
High Street.
Or if I have water somewhere in there.
Yep.
Water could be tapped into on Water Street.
Closer to Water
If that
Street.
6-inch main is large enough.
Correct.
If
And,
it is, I'm not an engineer, I don't know.
yep, that would be developed with his engineer and architect as far as flows, fire flows, those sort of
So then
things.
would it be expected that Water Street northeast of High, as it goes uphill there, would be developed curb gutter and asphalt one side, both sides? Because when I've driven it numerous times in the last week, what I see is erosion because High Street appears to have been maybe a chip seal or a double chip seal, shot chips, not a true paved street. There's no curb and gutter. Water has no guidance with curb and gutter at this point in any of those areas.
Yep.
And so it would appear that that would need to be done to guide the water so it doesn't end up in people's backyards and so forth.
Correct. The city would require the developer to develop that on his property, and typically we will partner, and would typically provide it, maybe on that adjacent, property, kind of directly west. One side, I would say for sure curb and gutter, the whole street would be paved. Also, as we develop building complexes, any of these type of projects, they're required to provide storm drainage plans, parking plans. We've already received geotechnical reports for this site, and those are provided by engineers and would require that, which addresses storm drainage as well, but all of that would be part of the permitting process, and that's the building permit process.
And then one question on history in this neighborhood, a lot of it is still gravel. There's a little bit of what might be called asphalt. There's no curb and gutter. Has there ever been, maybe somebody else can, but are you aware of any effort to do curb gutter, pavement, an SID or any kind of improvement in that area in last few decades?
So I can tell you the curb and gutter that's been placed there was done because lots were developed. And there is some newer builds that, those adjacent property owners were required and did follow through with installing curb and gutter. There has not been any asphalt put in there. The city has done some, primarily on High Street as we go down to Main Street. Things like that as those developments, such as the Oulette Place apartments increased kind of the demands of the neighborhood. But other than that, I'm not aware that there's been any SID looked at or evaluated for that area.
So if they were ever to turn, Rosewood Alley into a Rosewood Street, it would have to have that city minimum of 60 feet?
We could not ever develop, we would have to acquire land and stuff like that. So at this time, there's no thought at all to develop Rosewood as a street, because our minimum standards for a street right away is 60 feet.
Right.
And Rosewood is a 20-foot average.
Danny, Commissioner, Chairperson. I'm gonna go ahead and make the motion that we approve the request by Renovator to amend zoning of property located on Rosewood Street. I guess it's not really a street, is it? Near Fountain Terrace Drive, South High Street, and East Water Street from residential manufactured home to residential multifamily.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, I ask for public comments on the motion that is on the table.
And Richard Becker's as-built plan.
Sorry, what was that, Richard?
I go along with the original plan.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Terry.
I'm Perry Howell. I'm at 210 South High Street. I'm just down the road from where we're talking about going in, and thinking about the traffic issues that will probably come into play when you see the size of that piece of property going in, and knowing that there's been some things that have been kind of left undone in different areas, including by my house. There is the old hospital, right up on the hill, and the stormwater just comes right down our street, right into my garage, and so there hasn't been a lot of, I would call good work being done up in that area. As this person. I'm new, Tim Robinson, sorry. I don't have a name tag yet. Yeah, I couldn't tell. As you were talking about, there's just not a lot that's been done up in that area. It looks like for a long period of time. And to me, to be putting in something like that where you have any of that other existing infrastructure just does not look like a good plan. I was talking to some of my neighbors, and the neighbors were talking about, how deep these guys are gonna have to dig down to flatten that area out, and the amount of shale and different things that are probably gonna end up in our yards, and issues like that we're gonna have to deal with. I imagine that probably none of you have your house up there, but we're not too, obviously I'm not too excited about that, and would really like to see some more things done before we actually start. I know Lewistown has to grow. I know Lewistown needs to provide more housing. There's no question about that. I understand that, but I would just hope that we would do a real thoughtful process and try and make sure that we check all the boxes before we just sign something in there.
Thank you.
Would there be a time, or would we be able to put a retaining pond? Is that?
They'd be required to retain their stormwater, so that pre and post development, that increase has to be retained or maintained on their own property, so it cannot impact. Now, it's only the difference between the developments.
Tim Hahn, I actually live out of town, but I do own 3 or 4 houses in town. And good luck with that, because I have a drainage problem in front of one of my houses that's on City Street. And every time they got a new person in charge of that, you have them come out and they said, oh, we would have to drain that on public property, we're not gonna be responsible for that. Therefore, they did absolutely nothing. We ended up with a 30-foot wide pond by 60 feet long in the city street. Totally refused to touch it. Asked them to fill the bumps in the alleys or the big dips. Another house, 2 years, they said that's not high priority. People were starting to drive into people's lawns to get around the ponds. They don't have time and money for that stuff. So if they put something like this in here, I think everybody in that area will suffer.
Are there any
Quick.
more comments?
I have a question. So, but I know that they did the geotechnical survey and have looked at this development, and will work with the city on the development, but, am I correct in saying we are just changing, I mean, we're just changing the zoning from manufactured homes or basically trailer houses and stuff to, an, a little more, dwelling opportunities there? Because from my understanding, we're not saying yes or no to this development. This is development has already been purchased and is going through, whether we're just changing the zoning.
Correct. All that's in front of you tonight is to change the zoning from RMO, so that is manufactured housing, but also would include stick-built, regular, single-family. And they currently have 13 lots, so could build up to 13 units today with the existing zoning. But what's being requested is that it be changed to R3, which is multifamily, and the request is to build 34 units.
24.
Sorry, thank you.
And the survey has been completed. This rentivator, they actually ended up with the survey owning most of that Rosewood Alley.
Where
And working with the city with the zoning, we're just changing the zoning because it's not a question of whether this development is going to happen. But we as the city commission and the city administration can help, and Doug Osterman as the planner can help in making sure that this development goes in correctly with our building codes and our city codes, and how the drainage will happen, paving some of those streets, putting in street or curb and gutter. But it's not a question of whether this development is going in or not. The question is whether we're going to have 24 units or 13 trailer houses. Am I correct?
that is correct.
And for a renovator, okay, and we've been working with excavators, Joe Ward, the contractors, Doug, we've had meetings after meetings on how to take care of all these questions that everybody's bringing up. The pond, the retention pond, the sewer hookup, the manhole that has to be done, all the improvements, all that have all been, everybody's been working on that for the past 6 months on this, on how to make it work as far as the drainage goes. That was the biggest thing, because all the lots down, I think to the west of us, the road every time it rains, it erodes it away, and so the road has been creeping up onto our property for the past 50, 100 years. So we actually own most of that alley there. It's on our property. During the county commission meeting, we basically said we're going to live and let live, which means we're going to move all the stuff back farther onto our property, let Rosewood Alley take it and redo it, so none of the water runs down into the property anymore. It runs off down to the sewer area, and not make them tear down the fences to do their setbacks. If you were to do that, everybody's fences, barns, all that wood, all that stuff there is 15 feet onto the city property. So, like I said, during the county commission meeting, we just said we're going to live and let live. The house that's built next to us is actually built on our property. The wall is. We don't want to do any, disturb any of that stuff. We just want to, we'll suck it back up on our property and build it, and straighten out that rosewood, which is on our property anyway. So we'll just straighten that out and get in compliance with what Joe Ward wants, Doug, city planner wants. they've all been working together to make sure it gets done right. The other things where it's leaking or flooding and other, that has nothing to do whether we do the building or we don't do the building. That's maintenance on the road itself. The other things I'm hearing, if we don't build it, it sounds like it's already happening. If we build it, it's still gonna be happening. The only thing we're gonna do is retain what Holly was saying is the difference between what is going on there now and what would be because of the building displacing of the absorption of the water. As far as cutting in and of that hill there, was a hill that came all the way down from the top. Someone cut into the hill and they, instead of taking the dirt away, what they did is they just pushed it over to Rosewood. So in the plans, we are not going to excavate that down level to Rosewood. All we're going to do is dig the fill-in dirt out of there. We have a place to put it. Everything's lined up. We're going to take it down to Rosewood, and those are going to be our foundations right there. So we're not going to excavate the whole thing all the way back to the hill. We're not tearing up the hill. In fact, where it goes up the hill, I think we only own like maybe 10 more feet beyond that excavation already. So the most we're going to be able to go into is 6 feet, I believe, of new tear off. Everything that's on that level there is the ground level of that is grade. You know, that's not anything that was pushed off. We're going to remove and put it to grade, and then put our foundations in. The foundations are going to be tall enough for the parking to go under it, but they are foundations. The ground level is what that level of the property is right now. Or the grade that they graded it. And that's going to be where the parking structure is, the parking lot, and the pond, retention pond there. There's a pickleball court and some other things. There's a tree area, green areas, a picnic area kind of thing for the barbecue, because we don't want barbecue on the terraces or anything like that. So there'll be like a little park area on the Water Street side. Retention's on the inner side, towards the end of the alley.
Thank you. I know that there are some plans out there, and I know people will be able to probably look at
There,
them.
I have plenty of them on list.
Thank you.
I'm Tyler Wilson. This is also gonna bring a lot of revenue to our town and to the people all the people that they're trying to hire are locals. They're not trying to hire anybody out of town. I mean, they came and asked us to take and build it, so, you know, it's not just, you know, some out-of-city people coming here and buying up our land and trying to take and screw out all the locals, you know, they're thinking about everybody. I've been in these meetings and they're thinking about you guys. When I went and looked at the land with them, that was the first thing that I said was, if you guys start tearing all this out, all this water is gonna run down into these neighbors, and then you're gonna have a whole bunch of upset people, and that was the first thing John said, because we're not doing it. We wanna make everybody happy, and we wanna work with everybody. We want this to work, like, they're good people, and I think we should let them come in and help us make our town better, honestly. It's gonna improve a lot of things here, you know? They are gonna help do different things on your guys' roads and stuff, so that, I mean, it is improvements. Our town's dying. If you don't do something and have more things coming in, there isn't gonna be new young people coming here to live, because there's nothing for us to do here. There's no jobs, there's no nothing. You know, you either work at the main factories or you don't have work. This is gonna bring in probably 40 jobs for people, you know, for 8 months. And they're wanting to do more stuff for more living for people. Do you guys wanna have a homeless shelter here? You know, this is gonna make it to where we don't need a homeless shelter. There's gonna be ample amount of living for people. You know, I don't want a homeless shelter, personally. So, I mean, we need housing. It's either we have somebody come in and help us build housing, or we're gonna have more and more theft and more problems. You know, and at least they're keeping it local. That's what I got.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the commission?
I was just looking at the report from the engineering outfit, TD&H, and John, maybe you can address some of this. Although it did, this 50-page summary was pretty good, but they talked about the main geotechnical concern for this site is the presence of moderately expansive shale beneath the planned footing depth for the planned construction, and that this is from page 1. And the project is proposed to include a daylight underground parking facility that has a depth of up to 12 feet below ground level on the upslope side of the building. The foundation is proposed to bear on weathered shale, which is moderately expansive, especially when disturbed. The swell pressures measured during remolded laboratory testing are adequate to lift conventional lightweight construction, which can result in significant distresses to the interior finishes of the structure. But detailed recommendations and preparations for foundation options are provided in this report. And then, of course, the report does go on to say how to make this work.
Okay.
But it sounds very expensive.
It is
John?
expensive. My kids are gonna spend a ton of money on this thing here. So, when we first contacted the company, to give us the geo report, the building's gonna be back up against the back
Right.
of the property. And that was gonna be the main weight of it, was gonna be up, dug into the hillside, and that was their concern. So what we've done here is we are going to dig it. We moved the building to the front, away from being a hillside to being an independent up front. And that solved it because we're gonna remove, we're going on that flat area and removing the dirt that they pushed onto it. So we're taking it down to a new grade that's below the one that they were talking about. So the original plans were for the building to be placed in the back, drive up and drive under it that way of the property. But after the geo report, the engineers all got together and pulled it forward to the front. And yeah, that's how we fixed the engineering.
Thank you. Thank you.
So will your engineers, will you be parking then from the front instead of going in the rear?
Yeah, there'll be parking from the Rosewood. That's why we have to do Rosewood. That and that becomes our the parking skirt, which is there's your curb that we're asking about. The way the road's done, the water will come back towards it into a channel out towards the down Water Street. Okay, so any water that would have been on there on the road itself would be not going down towards the other adjacent properties, but back in to our gutter system. That's part of the improvement that the engineers have asked for the water flow to be able to flow into the property and not be dumped down below. In fact, for the houses directly below this, they'll see less water going on there onto their property than they do now.
I'd just like to re-clarify, we're not being asked to approve renovators plans at all. We're being asked to rezone, amend zoning. So all this is very interesting, but kind of irrelevant to our decision, which is, do we want to allow more housing than is currently allowed? The best way we have to determine that is through that, we say 12-point checklist, which the zoning commission did and provided to us. And, based on the recommendation, this area is suitable for that extra zoning. So I think we're getting a little off topic. This is about zoning or not about how we're gonna build it. So it's very interesting, but yeah, that's irrelevant. It's 24 buildings or 13, whatever the number is.
Thank you, Commissioner Speaka.
I'd like to echo what Commissioner Speaka said, but I've driven up there, I've looked at it. I have empathy for the people that have a beautiful, undeveloped backyard that becomes developed with this. And I say I have empathy because I live in a neighborhood and I've lived there for 22 years. and there's been no development south of me, and there are about to be 100 homes south of me. So I understand exactly how that feels. It's the nature of it. I didn't buy that property. I could have bought that property, and I didn't. And now it's gonna be 100 homes instead of a few. Kind of how things happen. In looking at the neighborhood, it appears to me that this is an old neighborhood that was never fully developed from a curb gutter asphalt standpoint. And that, to me, seems to be the issue at the core of most of the comments that I've heard that aren't the, I'll call them NIMBY comments, not in my backyard. But those are the issues with water movement, and having been in that industry, I can tell you curb, gutter, and asphalt would fix it. That's the only fix for it. And you're not gonna get that without some development and or an SID, a special improvement district. And those are painful, but they work. And so my comment would be, I would encourage the neighbors of the neighborhood to think about biting the bullet, fixing the issues with water and erosion and plowing and all those other problems that result from not having curb gutter and sidewalk, or it's curb gutter and street at very least, an asphalt street. And so, and I think that the city should be empathetic with those neighbors, knowing that they've been there for a long time, and look at our street funds and see if, for instance, the neighbors could do curb and gutter in an SID if the city could consider putting real live asphalt on those streets, which I've seen it done in other neighborhoods, and it wouldn't be the cheapest solution. It wouldn't be as cheap as not doing anything, but would fix the problems with the water moving for the most part, and where they would go and where ice would be on the streets and so forth. And I'm with Commissioner Speaka. This is about zoning. It's not about the construction process. It's not about the plans as they are engineered. It's about the zoning. And so I would rather see, frankly, an apartment complex that was high quality, as this appears to be, than 13 trailers on that lot, which I think the owner could certainly do if he chose to do that. Or anybody could do if they wanted to do that, and that would be a shame, because I think it wouldn't do anything to improve the infrastructure in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Danny, I'm going to call for the question.
Okay, Commissioner Terry.
We have any more comments?
Any more comments? Okay,
We're ready for a vote.
thank you.
Okay, the motion is to approve the request by Renovator LLC to amend zoning of property located on Rosewood Street near Fountain Terrace Drive, South High Street, and East Water Street from residential manufactured home to residential multifamily. Commissioner Bueller.
Aye.
Commissioner Hewitt.
I,
Commissioner Rubes.
Nay.
Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
Commissioner Speaka.
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly, or Terry.
Aye. Aye, thank you.
Sorry. The motion passes.
Thank you. On to agenda item number 2. Discussion and action on awarding the bid to Viking Painting LLC for the 2024 Lewistown Water System Improvement Project. Phase 2, Schedule 2, to paint the million-gallon water tank and authorize the city manager, Holly Phelps, to sign the contract. City Manager Holly Phelps.
Give these folks a minute.
What going on?
Okay, so as part of phase 2, schedule 2 of our water project, which, is some ARPA projects that, were identified. We put it out to bid earlier in May, and you can see the bid tabs there. Everything did come in over budget, and so I'm working with the engineer to rebid Schedule 1, which is some various work on water main replacement, and Schedule 3, which is the lining of an irrigation ditch in the area of the wastewater plant. The way the bid was written, if you bid on Schedule 1, you had to bid on Schedule 3, and we received just one bid for each. But that being said, the contractors and their schedules are very limited as to tank painting. And so what's being proposed is to sandblast both the inside and the outside of our above ground water tank, which is behind the old Burger King, Fort Lewis area, and repaint it, fix any rust issues, and then coat both inside and outside.
Did we get any information on that? I don't
Yes.
see it.
You have the bid tabs and the budget.
This guy, okay.
And so you can see the budget. Again, this schedule, is about 100,000 over, the engineer's estimate. Again, as I said, we've got some additive alternates and are looking at some different bidding, that we can do to make the project all go. But, tonight, all you're being asked about is the tank painting. And if approved tonight, the contractor will actually be doing work in the area and could start, by the 1st of August.
Is this for the exterior of the building?
Exterior and interior of the water tank, of the actual tank itself.
And then these are not the water mains or the ditch lining?
Correct. Those will be rebid.
And tank on top of the hill?
Correct.
So painting the interior of that tank, that is mainly for rust prevention?
Yes, yep. It's an epoxy type coat. That tank, it's 1 million gallons and it was constructed about, 1965. So good maintenance, keeps it around.
Yeah, I've used epoxy on swimming pools, it's nasty stuff.
It's a specialized
Until it
thing.
dries, yes. A lot of money, but, okay.
Make a motion to approve Schedule 2 as bid by Viking Industrial Painting.
Second.
Are there any comments from the public?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission? Okay, Nikki, can we do a roll call vote?
Yes. The motion is to approve awarding the bid to Viking Painting LLC for the 2024 Lewistown Water System Improvement Project Phase 2, Schedule 2, to paint the 1 million gallon water tank and authorize the city manager to sign the contract. Commissioner Bueller,
Aye.
Commissioner Hewitt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rubes,
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson,
Aye.
Commissioner Speaka. Aye. Commissioner Terry.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, discussion and action on setting the boulevard maintenance assessment for fiscal year 2024-2025. City Manager Holly Phelps.
Yes. So again, this is the spreadsheet that we went and utilized at the committee of the whole just briefly. The first one we're discussing tonight is the Boulevard District, so it's actually the page 2. Obviously, what boulevard we're talking about is the boulevard in the center of the street. So those are located on Boulevard Street and on 7th Avenue North. The properties that are adjacent to those boulevards have a special assessment, and the way that those are assessed is per linear foot of street frontage. And you can see the past rates and how they've gone. The plan has always been to study those boulevards and what we need to do in the future to address infrastructure such as lighting, storm drainage, before we resurface Boulevard Street itself. The state is currently in the process of doing a traffic study, or a transportation study of that area, and, we will be going, once we get some of that information back, moving forward with a design and some new lighting and things like that. Primarily, those boulevards contribute to the charm of the neighborhood. Also, we utilize them for snow storage and stuff like that in winter as well.
Any questions from the commission?
So you can see the current rate, and we're proposing that we leave the rate as is, which is 75 cents a linear foot. For the total area of this assessment is just under 5,000 square feet and generates on an annual basis $3,700, and $44.
So question on this, am I reading this wrong, or under percent increase column for this year and last year, it would be 0, is that correct?
It just,
So
didn't
there's no
calculate.
increase. Just wanna make sure I'm not reading it wrong.
And I will point out that the city does pay assessments, and so of that square footage, the city does have 640 feet that they pay as well.
Like a motion to approve.
I would like a
Motion to approve the street maintenance assessment for fiscal 2024-2025 at the current rate. Boulevard, sorry.
Boulevard, perfect.
I'll
Boulevard
second.
maintenance. Sorry.
There's a motion and a second. Got it. Any discussion from the public? Any discussion from the commission? There being none, I would ask for a roll call vote.
The motion is to set the boulevard maintenance assessment for fiscal year 2024-2025 at 75 cents per lineal street frontage. Commissioner Bueller,
Aye.
Commissioner Hewitt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rubes,
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson,
Aye.
Commissioner Speaka. Aye. Commissioner Terry.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes.
Yes.
All right. All right, we're on to agenda item number 4, discussion and action on setting the street maintenance assessment for fiscal year 2024 to 2025. City Manager Holly Phelps.
Yep, so included in that same packet is the street maintenance and the assessments for the last several years. We do cap residential lots at 15,000 square feet, so that's the bottom grouping here, but the average city lot is roughly 4,500 square feet. So you can see how those affect each properties. Again, we briefly touched on the additional funding that the city utilizes for street funding, and that includes gas tax, entitlement share. There was also some one-time funds that we received last year and do have a fair amount of reserves. So what's being proposed tonight is also not increasing that. This one is set by a square footage of the lots. So as I said, residential is capped, but commercial properties are not capped. And the current rate is 3.5 cents per square foot.
I move that we set the street maintenance assessment for the fiscal year of 2024-25, and it remained the same.
Second, sorry.
Motion on the table, and a second. Any public comment?
comment before you close it?
Yes.
Generally, if all of our costs are going up, it would feel like we should do a nominal minor increase. I think in this case, because you have external monies that have increased your budget, it's different. But it scares me when I see 2 or 3 years in a row at zero, when I know that people are getting paid more and costs are going up. And I don't want to add to our tax burden, and we shouldn't have to if we have the other money coming in, but I would hate to see it go another year.
I would say that's exactly why we're not recommending it, is those additional one-time funds as well as some of our reserves. Because otherwise we couldn't, continue to operate and do the same level of service without increasing costs.
So just a question, is it typical, I see there's like a 0% increase and then maybe a couple years of increase and then a couple zeros and then kind of catch up as opposed to a regularly scheduled increase? Is that typical of the street assessment?
It depends on the cost. Again, I mean, even 1/10 of a cent is a 3% increase.
That's what I was speaking of. I'd rather see a nice smooth curve rather than bounce, suddenly our taxes go way up on the street assessment, or we get behind on an improvement of infrastructure somehow. But given the external funding and the fund balance being high, I would like to stay the same.
That was an issue a year or two ago with our sewer. We hadn't raised it for a long time, and so we needed a large jump, and the people were not happy. So, yeah, it's best to a little at 50 cents at a time, things like that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
So we are approving the street maintenance assessment for fiscal year 24-25 to remain the same at 3.5 cents per square foot. Commissioner Bueller,
Aye.
Commissioner Hewitt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rubes,
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson,
Aye.
Commissioner Speaka,
Aye.
Commissioner Terry.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 5, first reading of ordinance number 1772, an ordinance amending Lewistown City of Lewistown Code 515-1 as it pertains to distances between churches and schools and establishments with a liquor license within the city limits. City Manager Holly Phelps.
Yes, so included in your packet is what was previously presented. We did have some discussion where, the final whereas would read, basically it's, the city commissioner finds it's in the best interest of the city of Lewistown that at least 300 feet be required for separation between schools from any establishment. And that's where we had some questions, as to, is it any establishment or is it establishment selling with a full liquor license or just selling beer and wine? And they are currently only allowed in our commercial zones, them being bars, taverns, those sort of establishments.
I know this, has been a discussion about, in particular with the mob building. Is the mob building at least 300 feet? Have people checked that?
From a school, they're currently, again, we don't determine what the definition of a school is. A daycare is not considered a school under state law, but it potentially could affect like the junior high, things like that.
Thank you. Discussion? Yes.
Are we to the commissioner's part yet?
We are there.
All right. Commissioner Terry, when we had our committee meeting on this, wasn't the focus of our discussion on beer and wine license, not full liquor?
I think, isn't it, Holly, and I could be wrong, but I think that's what we did talk about that, Ron, but aren't they kind of not interchangeable, but it doesn't matter what the alcohol is, it's still alcohol. Isn't that how the state law reads?
That's how the current state law reads, yes.
So even though, Ron, that's what we talked about, I think we have to just say liquor licenses because that just encompasses everything. Because it doesn't matter, it's still alcohol, whether you just have a beer and wine license or you have a liquor license, according to state law. But yes, that's what we did talk about. And so with this, we're just, when we had our meeting, with this, we're just changing the 300 feet. We're the distance, we're not saying it can be everywhere or anything or all that. We're not supplanting the whole thing. We're just supplanting the distance.
From
That was
schools.
from schools and churches, right?
Not churches.
Not 100% the planning from churches.
Yeah.
Say that again.
There is no distance requirement between bars
Okay.
and
churches.
churches.
Okay. In our proposal.
Correct, what's in front of us.
So our proposal is focused entirely on schools.
Oh.
I like,
Yeah. And it's just the distance.
I like this better than what we looked at last time. I still think the distance is arbitrary and pointless, but I will not die on that sword. I get the thought behind it. I also don't think it's gonna make a whit of difference in, preventing any sort of issue. If we keep it in there, your question was all liquor or just beer and wine, or all alcohol or just liquor. It seems definitely simplest to keep it everything, because like we talked about, there's so many levels of, alcohol regulations and licenses, that just seems like messy to try to define our rules for each one.
It does clean it up a lot.
And I think this too, like if you just say any alcohol of any kind like this also doesn't, we wouldn't have to change it yet again, because what if somebody put like in a distillery or something, that wasn't beer and wine or just an open bar, or not an open bar, but a bar. So I think that by putting in like any level of liquor licenses kind of covers us completely on what it's alcohol is alcohol is alcohol sort of thing.
I'll just repeat, a bar will not function if all they can sell is beer and wine. They've got to sell hard liquor to survive and have poker machines and all that stuff. That's why I'm fairly adamant about keeping it as beer and wine.
Danny, I will go ahead and make the motion to approve the first reading of ordinance numbers 1772.
Thank you.
I'll second.
There's a motion on the table. Is there any public comment at this time? Thank you.
In a previous meeting and the reporting that came out after that, did not your city attorney caution you all about the setting of precedent? And the reason I bring that up is that as a law enforcement officer to spend many, many, many hours in a courtroom listening to attorneys argue back and forth about setting precedent, I just hope, where's your city attorney at? Is he in favor of this situation, or is he still cautioning you about setting precedent? Because if this town is going to grow, if people are going to move in from everywhere and anywhere, You may be battling this down the road and somebody's gonna say to you, you already set precedent. I caution you.
At this time, this ordinance is due to the vote that did supplant state law, and it is now being built out as our law in town. So the precedent that you are talking about may have already been set. Yes,
Mr.
Richard?
Baggett, I'll agree with him. All right.
Thank you. Any more comments? Comments from the commission? There being none, let's take a roll call vote. And again, this is on the first reading, correct? We will have a
Yes.
second reading of this?
Yes.
Thank you.
So this is an ordinance. This is the first reading of ordinance number 1772. An ordinance amending ordinance number 1484 codified as Lewistown City Code Section 5-15-1, supplanting the provisions of 16-6-306 Montana Code annotated, eliminating the distance between an established with any liquor license and a church, synagogue, or other place of worship in commercial zones, and requiring a distance of 300 feet between an establishment with any liquor license and a school in commercial zones, enacting a new section under Chapter 15, Title 5 of the Lewistown City Code, declaring an effective date and authorizing the city attorney to codify the same. Do we understand the motion and the first reading?
Yes.
Commissioner Bueller,
Aye.
Commissioner Hewitt,
Nay.
Commissioner Rubes,
Because of the word liquor, I have to vote no.
Commissioner Robertson,
Aye.
Commissioner Speaka,
Aye.
Commissioner Terry.
Aye.
Motion passes on first reading. This will come back at the next meeting for the second reading.
Thank you. All right, we are on to a citizen's request. So we are here to listen. Okay. Moving to the commissioner's minute. Commissioner Robertson.
Two things. First off, it was brought to my attention by one of our constituents that the city cemetery is seen somewhat neglected in its care. Sorry, I'll bring this closer. I visited the cemetery with that constituent, and then again every day the last week, and I've seen little to no progress on anything in the cemetery in terms of cutting. I saw one day where there was an employee cutting grass. It appears that there's a disconnect between the priorities of the caretaker or the department or something and getting it done. And so I'm here to encourage the city, the city manager, whomever, to reestablish different either priorities or resources. And I've voiced that personally with Holly. But we need to do something. We need to do it tomorrow, not Wednesday, but tomorrow. And if I have to, I'll go up there myself tomorrow with my own lawnmower if you give me permission to get it cut. But it's not just lawn mowing, it's weeds and it's trimming. And we're charging people for it, and we have a reputation as a community, and we need to do something to fix it. And so I'm here to help with whatever I can do to encourage that. So that's not a tongue lashing, that's a, let's do whatever we can do to get it done right away. The second thing is that I have a request from representatives of Rowell, the recycling folks, to look at helping them in terms of hard surfacing around their buildings, because they're having real problems with drainage and rutting and there's big turning motion in that area which tears it up. And so anything that the city can do to help with hard surfacing around their facilities if possible. in this summer's efforts on city streets. I know it's not a street, but it's an important community resource. A lot of people use it, and it would be nice to not have to always step in the mud when people drop their stuff off. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hewitt.
Well, mine is the, wastewater plant. When are we going to start the repairs and stuff on that?
We have been repairing several things. And so I don't know if there's specific repairs you're referring to or not. What is being done, we are working with DEQ and our engineer, or our engineer is working with them primarily to rectify those issues that were identified in the violation. That is specific to the storm water at the facility, not the actual facility itself. So we do not have any answer on anything they saw as far as internal equipment in the facility. Now I can say they're also making repairs of facilities. During some high flows, they had a screw pump that malfunctioned and spun around, and so they've been working with local contractors to get that done. They're doing some maintenance on the step screen and things like that. So they are doing those maintenance issues continually.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Roots.
Nothing at this time.
Commissioner Speaka.
How at risk are we for the fines that are being projected and?
I mean, it's definitely not something you want to ignore, and that's why we're taking it seriously and moving forward. I don't know what the long-term solution is for, if we did a composting license, if it is not lined and a facility that they're satisfied with, we may have to change up our disposal process. I mean, at this time, I don't think it would be very realistic that they would give us a composting license without those improvements, and I don't know what those timelines are. It's hard to say how accommodating DEQ would be, but I don't know that. I've had very hard times actually getting them to communicate with me at this time.
So do they want a cement pad for, I'm trying to figure out what they want.
There's lots of different things that
Non-permeable
could,
surface.
yeah.
Right.
And so it could be lined with a membrane or like a concrete. There's, I'm sure, lots of different designs out there, but it would require an engineer to do it.
Is there a possibility of moving it to a different location? The waste that needs to be composted rather than be alongside the river?
It still soaks into the ground, and that's the issue. I mean, it's not necessarily open flowing to the creek. It's what they're concerned about is the groundwater.
All over to Jordan, Montana, don't really notice it.
Well, and even land applying, there's a bunch of different things.
They need the fertilizer.
Commissioner Terry.
The only question I have, Commissioner's Minute, is, first of all, I support Tim, Commissioner Robertson, and what he said about the cemetery. I have had so many calls on it and people just being upset. And since it's not just something where the neighbors are complaining or whatnot, it's, there's a lot of people who have people there. And if there's anything we can do to try to fix that, the weeds and the mowing, and it's kind of embarrassing at this point. And then the other thing is, I was just wondering where we were on those bids for that FWP Trails project for doing that for that grant.
We're currently soliciting those bids.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you. I appreciate, Danny, you running the meeting, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I know we had a lot to talk about tonight, but.
die,
Yeah.
don't die.
Better.
Is it possible to change our policy on, apparently we don't fight the weeds there in the cemetery, or we don't have a budget for it, or?
No, none of that is actually fact. What we don't have is a certified weed applicator.
Could we hire the county?
So we have traditionally hired the county for both trails and to do some spraying in the cemetery for us. But that is a requirement of the cemetery caretaker as well.
I have a moment to say, I appreciate Lewistown Water. I was in the community of Fort Benton over the weekend, and they had 3 water main breaks, and their town went out of water multiple times. So what I would like to say is how important water is in our community. We need to take care of it, we need to respect it, and we need to have the infrastructure that can support our community, and I think we're working to do that. So I appreciate our efforts. I do come back to the letter we received from the Big Spring Water Council, and I do think they're bringing up some very interesting points, and I would reiterate that I would like to invite them to a committee of the whole to open that dialogue between our 2 entities so that we can understand where they're coming from, and like they say in their letter, work together to make sure that our beautiful, wonderful, amazing water stays that way in Lewistown. That is my minute of the day.
Thank you for stepping up tonight too.
Yeah, no problem. So you're like,
And thank you for the microphones.
Yes, thank you.
we got used to them halfway through,
There's a
right?
learning curve. We have volume controls and stuff, so bear with us, but.
Perfect. All right, anything else? At this time, I adjourn our meeting.